Can everyone see my screen? Yes, okay. So I picked this topic because last year, 2020, was a really hard year for everyone, and we moved on to online learning. And I have had experience with online, but some of my classmates really struggled with that, and I saw how it negatively impacted a lot of students. So I was really passionate about talking about it. Here are just some numbers and some facts that I found. Over the pandemic that forced college students to switch online. Let me just move this real quick. Oh, no, so sorry. Okay, let me start that over. Okay, sorry. So, since the pandemic forced college students to switch online, over 60% of students said that it negatively impacted them. 61% of college students are at risk of developing clinical depression. A study from the best colleges shows that 35% of college students feel that they will have a lasting mental health effect from their school's changes during the pandemic. More than 80% of college students felt overwhelmed by all the work that they had to do, and 45% felt things were hopeless. Only 25% of students with a mental health problem seek help, and almost a third of college students report having felt depressed and that they had trouble functioning or even getting out of bed. So, some of the common mental health challenges affecting college students is depression, anxiety, suicide, eating disorders, and addiction. There are many more, but I just chose these five. So during the pandemic, I had to do a lot of things that would help me, like self care wise. And one thing that I found was engaging in the four M's of mental health. And that looked like mindfulness, mastery, movement, and meaningful engagement. So, with mindfulness, just spending time focusing on the present, mastery, just picking up a new hobby. I really like to cook and sing. So, just learning recipes, learning new songs really was what I was doing. Movement, just getting outside, even though we had to be inside, just walking around the block a little bit would help me out a lot. And meaningful engagement. I found a supportive mental health Zoom group that I helped facilitate, and that really helped me a lot. And I'll talk about that further on. That really helped me a lot because there was people from all over the world who were online struggling, and we were able to talk about our feelings and talk about what was going on. And I really liked doing that. I really enjoyed that because I could talk about my experience, and with my degree in psychology, just provide insight to like just students and anybody who needed help. Um, so the college mental health crisis is something that is ongoing, even though we're still in a pandemic. A lot of students, even though they're back in school, are still having some problems adjusting. And here are some of ideas that I came up with. So increase awareness of on-campus resources. Cheney does have a lot of resources, but some students don't know. So just having more awareness about those resources, whether it's online or through our emails, providing off campus referrals when necessary, developing preventive resources, and having telehealth services. And telehealth services will enable students to access emotional support 24/7. So, students that are, let's say it's midnight and you're working on a paper and you're really struggling, who are you going to call? Some people are sleeping, your friends may be sleeping. So, just having that support, having someone to be there to talk to is very important. Um, yes, so also talk about just having that virtual talk therapy. That is very helpful because it can encourage students to speak up and to create a mental health plan and to have a supportive group of people that they can also talk to about things that are affecting them. Adding more counselors to college campuses, there are a lot of students versus how many counselors there are. So at least providing a good amount would also be helpful because that would be a lot on just one counselor with all these students that have all these different type of needs. Peer counseling is something new. Just having one-on-one time with other students, because students will know what students are going through. So a lot of my psych friends, we were able to talk about like that we were struggling, and we were able to like, talk one-on-one. And a lot of students do feel comfortable talking to their peers rather than an adult. And just normalizing mental health, not stigmatizing. I've learned a lot of times at Cheney, not at Cheney specifically, but through going to school there, there is a big stigmatism for mental health. A lot of people don't speak up, whether it's due to cultural reasons, whether it's just due to how they grew up. I know personally for me, I had to have that conversation with my mom and talk about mental health. And I have younger siblings now. So it's like, if they talk about, oh, I'm having anxiety or depression, at least they have someone to go to, and it won't be like depression. What is that? So um just having that type of conversation, and just not stigmatizing, because a lot of students, a lot of people struggle with mental health, and it's okay. It's not weird. It's not anything to be ashamed about. So these are some resources for Cheney students. I definitely utilize the counseling services. I met with my life coaches a lot. And one thing that is at Cheney that students may not know about is the DMAX Club. And that is a student led mental health related social club on a college campus that encourages these types of conversations. Any tips that I would provide students that are struggling with their mental health is to really engage in self-care, whether it's physical, like exercise, social self-care, hanging out with friends, emotional journaling, practicing mindfulness, asking for help, journaling, giving yourself permission to rest. I'm learning that. Getting centered, doing yoga, drawing, just taking a walk. When I take a walk, it helps me clear my mind. It helps me focus on being in the now, talking to a professional, or joining a support group. And I just put some mental health reminders for anyone that is struggling, and I'll just read a few. It's okay not to be okay. Struggling with your mental health does not make you a burden or harder to love or crazy. One of the most things that I learned in my abnormal psych class at Cheney was that you should not label people that struggle with their mental health or have a mental health illness as crazy. They're still human. So I really like to stress that when people are talking about mental health. And just if you are struggling with your mental health, that doesn't define you. And it's okay to ask for help. And any relapse or sudden series of attacks or any just bad days does not decrease your value as a human being. And these are just my resources that I provided if anyone like needs to use them, or just the national resources that are out there. Thank you.
All right, very nice presentation. Thank you, Kitty, and welcome to Kutztown. Glad to see you
Thank you.
next year. So it's a really nice topic, especially during the pandemic, and I think it's not necessary just for college students. It's a fairly common question for overall population. So I noticed that in on the first slide, you said that there are 60% have the negative impact for their life. So 60%, that's during a pandemic, that's all general, all like in the regular time.
That was during the pandemic.
Okay.
Yes.
That still seems a fairly high number.
Yes.
All right. And also you were mentioning like develop preventative resources. Can you make that be a little bit more specific? Which kind of preventative?
Yes, just having like resources, providing students with like a safety plan that are struggling. So just having those types of services, and what to do if you are struggling, or what to do if things are really bad and you don't like know what to do, because a lot of students may not know what to do or who to call, or the feelings that they have, they may not even know what those are. So having, when you talk to students, talking to them about those types of plans that they may need.
Right. Yeah, that sounds really helpful. And I also noticed that Cheney provides life coaches.
Yes.
That's really neat. So I'm not aware Kutztown have that. So can you explain a little bit more how what does a life coach do and how that help?
Yes. So I had a life coach. She was amazing, Miss Laura Vargas. And you can have conversations about anything that you're struggling with. They help you with developing to become a better person. So sometimes if I was struggling with something, I was able to go to Ms. Vargas, or if I wanted to just develop like my social skills or my public speaking skills, we can come up with a plan and we would meet one-on-one to talk about those types of things. So they really help you and they're really advocate for you in anything that you need. So there's three on campus and they all specialize in like different things. So Miss Tracy, she does a lot of activities outside. So sometimes that's different for different students. So I'm like a homebody, but hanging out with Miss Tracy, I was able to go out in nature. We're able to talk, clear our minds, and then we're able to do yoga. So they provide different types of support for many different students. They have different events. There's tons of events that the life coaches provide at Cheney, whether it's inside or outside. They're really helpful. They're just someone that will advocate for you. And if you're not comfortable just talking to a therapist, you can at least talk to them about things that you are struggling with. If you're having an issue with a professor, they're able to talk to you. They're able to be that middleman if you don't know what to say sometimes as well.
That sounds a great support to students. All right. So any other questions from our audience?
I just wanted to comment when you talked about how COVID interrupted instruction and forced many schools to go totally online. My experience with doing coursework totally online was pre-COVID. And I can tell you it was challenging enough because I had come back to school after 35 years to pursue a degree that I had started 35 years ago. And because I was working full time, the option of total online learning was the best way to go. But I can tell you very early on, because I'm not very technologically savvy, very early on, I was calling the help desk at my university. And one of the techs did not have a lot of patience. And what he said to me was really harsh. What he mentioned was, and he was respectful, he says, ma'am, if you're having this much trouble, just logging on to your different courses, he says, you are not going to make it through this master's program. That angered me. And it also let me know that, yes, I am older, but I can do this. So as I persisted, I was able to do it, not without any heartache or other trouble spots. But if you imagine this had happened during COVID, someone who had not been back to school in 35 years, that would have really been not earth-shattering, but I don't know if I would have completed on time.
I think TT, some of the things that you've been able to uncover are not just applicable for students, right? I see that they are applicable to everyone, right? We all experienced COVID, and we all had some challenges. And, one of the realities of it is that we realized that we were not even taking care of ourselves. Right. And so a lot of what I took out of COVID is self-care, and reminding our faculty, staff, and our students about self-care as well. So that's interesting to see that, some of the resources and things that you have uncovered throughout your research, and also being having this affect you in this way, which prompted you to learn more about it, are things that are applicable or transferable to other groups as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
I also appreciate it on the heels of what Kizzy just shared. I think a lot of times we miss the notion of professionals, and whether they're faculty and staff, having mental health issues just as the students, and we are charged to assist the students. And if any of you have ever taken a flight, you have the stewardess who goes through all of the pre-flight instructions. And one of the things they tell us is, if that mask falls down, put your mask on first before you assist others. And I think that is very critical in terms of really addressing a lot of the needs of our students, a lot of even on the needs of our colleagues, working with them and collaborating throughout the university so we can have stronger programs and stronger services for our students. And so that's very critical. And I think that is a point that's missed. And my second thing that I would like to say is I would like to say next year's conference needs to go to Kutztown so we can experience some of Tutu's cooking, since she likes to cook. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. There was one other thing I wanted to add. I know it was also hard for the professors with the students. And one thing that I like to do is do like mental health check-ins. So I feel like that would be very valuable to the students and provide that dialogue with, with the professors, I'm going through this with you because COVID is still going on and it affects all of us. I just chose students because I'm going to be a student, but it does affect everyone, like parents. Like a lot of parents are used to sending their kids to school, and now it's like, oh, I don't know how to work this Zoom, helping my mom, and she's Nigerian, so it was very interesting trying to help her. But I think just having those check-ins, even I'm not a professor, but even doing those mental health check-ins is very important because it is hard. It's not easy. There's no book. We're living in this in real time. So sometimes I think about having to one day tell my kids like, oh, COVID-19, well, this is how I dealt with it. And as you were saying, Ms. Morris, about self-care, I really had to learn that because there were days that I did not want to do my work, but it was like the work must get done. So just having that balance, if you work, go to school, you have all these commitments, just taking at least 30 minutes or 1 hour to just, no one talk to me, I'm in my bubble, please, just leave me. So yeah.
So thank you again. I think it's about a time for our next speaker. So again, please give you a brief introduction before you start your presentation. All right, thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Zainab Silva. I am a senior at Cheney University. I'm graduating in May, and I'm a biology major with a minor in math. And I chose to, so my research is kind of going through the more science-based aspect. So I chose to do this research because, well, I chose to present on this research because it was the first actual lab research I did. And it was really interesting. The environment was working in. Let me try it. Can you guys see this? Okay. So the research topic I would be presenting on today is using a mechanical approach to analyze the growth rate of NAV001 CHO production lines to aid oncology research. So I did this research with Navergen, which is one of the companies Cheney has a partnership with on campus. So they basically have a space on Cheney campus, and they allow students to basically kind of like shadow. They allow student interns in their labs, and I was able to be one of the students. So the experiment I did was 6-part based, but I'll only be talking on the first section of the experiment because it's really long, and if I'm going to talk about the 6, like I would take the whole time. So the antibody we used for this research was NAV001, which is an antibody that targets and kills cells that express mesothelin. And mesothelin are tumor differentiation antigen highly expressed in cancer. So the cell line we used was Chinese hamster ovary cell, which is short for CHO, CHO. And the purpose of the first section of the experiment was to get the growth curve for the CHO line when it is placed in the CD-CHO medium. So in order to do this experiment, we used CHOK1SV, which is a crippled cell that can't make its own glutamine, and transfected it with the antibody, which was the NAV001 expression plasmid containing the glutamine synthase for gene expression. And then because cells that get stably integrated into the glutamine synthase containing plasmid in their chromosomes would grow and allow the antibody genes to be expressed. And the cells that don't get a plasmid in their genome would eventually starve and die. So only cells that can make would grow. And in order to carry out this experiment, we counted the antibody first, which is the NAV001. We counted the antibody we put the antibody in the seed flask after counting it. So basically we took 30 microliters of the antibody and stained it with 30 microliters of trypan blue. And then we put it in the counter slide and then put it in the counter cell counter. And then after doing that, we got the percentage cell viability and the cell density for that day. And then we transferred the volume that's required for 6 million cells total, and then spun it at 950, we spun it at 950 rotation per minute. And then after spinning it, we transferred 30 milliliters of the CD-CHO with methionine sulfoxamide, methionine sulfoxamide, and we put it in a shake flask, and then put the shake flask, left the shake flask shaking at the environment of 37 degrees Celsius. And then every day for about 7 days, we counted the cells to check for the cell viability and the cell density by taking 30 microliters of the sample and staining it with 30 microliters of trypan blue. And then after about 10 days, we took it out of the shake flask because the cells were starting to die. And then we took out about 60 microliters of the cell. We took out about 60 microliters of the sample and then spun it again for 88 rotation per minute for 1 minute, and then transferred the supernatant into a fresh tube and kept it for the next experiment, which would be the second section of the experiment. And then as you can see from the result we got, the cells started to go into the log phase on day 2, and then it went to the stationary phase on day, phase on day 6, and then it started to die at day 10. So basically, this tells us that for our next experiment, which is when we'll be adding the feed, we would need to start adding the feed between day 2 and day 6. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Very nice poster presentation. And again, congratulations for your graduation.
Thank
You
you.
have any plans after you graduate?
Yes, I applied to Yale for the PhD program. So I'm waiting to hear back from them. So.
All right. Yeah, good luck. And I guess any time for the good news. So what's your, and you said that you get started into this class at training. And so what's the motivation to work on this specific project?
Well, I didn't pick what subject I wanted to work on. It was just, that was what was available. But then like I got to, well, I guess I liked it because I was more hands-on. Like no one was hovering like around when I was like doing the research. Because usually in the labs, like the professors are like always around, and like basically you have limited supplies to do what you're supposed to do. But then like in the averaging lab, I was able to work on my own at my own time and like basically apply what I learned to in lab. So it was really good.
Yeah, and it turned out great. So that's really nice. So one quick question that is on your poster figure 1, and you had 2 figures. Are those the average results over a certain number of experiments? How many experiments?
I'm sorry.
So you have the 2 figures. One is cell density, the other is field reliability. And so are those the results over many experiments, I would assume, right? How many?
So the result on the poster was the result we got from doing the first section of the experiment, because we did 6 parts of the experiment to get the final result. But the result on the poster was just for the first part of the experiment.
All right. Okay, nice. So any other questions, comments from our audience?
So I have a question for you, Zainab, and I just want you to, first of all, really great job on the research, and I know that some of it that you're continuing. Can you share a little bit about, what it meant to, you're learning this stuff in class, but actually being able to apply it in an actual research lab?
It was really, well, it was kind of scary at first because I didn't want to like put something where I was not supposed to, mix students where I was not supposed to do. But the person I was working with, he was really, he was really patient and like good at basically explaining and encouraging me to basically do it by myself. Because usually when he's not there, I just like wait till he gets back before I start, because I didn't want to do anything like to mess the experiment up. But as I continued to basically go there every day, I got more comfortable with working by myself in the lab without someone being there. So it was really good. Because like obviously when you go out into the world, you would have to do this by yourself anyway. So it was really good. I like.
Any other questions, comments?
Great job, Zainab.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a really great to have this research experience during the undergraduate student year. So, and it's really nice opportunity as the other one mentioned, that it's try to give you a feel about what you plan to do in the future and testing out. So, and again, great work. So thank you. And thank you for 2 brilliant students to share their experience and the researcher work. And thank you for everybody coming, join their presentations. So, all right.
So I believe our next session is our closing plenary, which begins at 4. I will paste again I have to find it, our agenda. I don't know if you might have it handy, May, that you can post for us so that folks can get the link to our next session. But again, I want to pause and thank our student researchers, Rachel, who presented yesterday, as well as TT and Zainab for sharing your research interests and telling us a little bit about your path and some of the things that you have in store for a next step in your career pursuits. Thanks again, Dr. Liu, for helping us moderate our student session yesterday as well as today. Really appreciate it. And the link to our agenda is being posted.
I think Lauren did it.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
So folks can hop over and this has been really, really informative and exciting for us to be able to present all this information throughout our academic conference on breaking barriers. So I will see folks over on the other side for our closing plenary. Thanks, everyone.